So editing Shatila here. The enemy did not want me to put this video out. I recorded it. The video file came out of my camera corrupted, which literally has never happened before ever. I have gone through the ringer trying to get this video exported to be able to upload, and it's just not happening. So there will be no video file, which really sucks because I put a lot of work into it. But you know what? The show must go on. This message is supposed to get to whoever it's supposed to get to, and I'm not gonna just keep sitting on it because it's not perfect. I was like bumping. I'm gonna export this audio and it's gonna now be a podcast, and the message is gonna get to whoever it needs to get to. Just know, if this message resonates with you and you're like, Shatila, that was for me. No, it was for you. I went through literally like hell and high water to get it to you. Just know God really wanted you to hear this, and I hope you enjoy. Hey, I'm Shatila, and thank you so much for deciding to join me for this video. If you are new here, I am a board certified health coach by trade. However, my heart and my passion is to merge the physical health with the spiritual health. I really wanted to talk about something that is super near and dear, super sensitive to my heart. And you know, I'm just gonna let the Lord guide me. It was kind of like a thought that I had that led to a revelation and realizations, and it's not honestly fully formed, but here I am. So when it comes to having this relationship with God, you have this general understanding that there is a kingdom of darkness and there is a kingdom of light. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't be a part of God's kingdom and want to be at the club busting it down, you know, on a Saturday night. I used to be there, okay? Hello, college. That is a thing where, you know, there's lukewarm Christianity where you like to walk that line, you like to love Jesus, but you like to love the world too. So if you're anything like me and you go on these random deep dives, you've come across these testimonies on YouTube of an ex-witch or an ex-Satanist or an ex-psychic or whatever, and they've met Jesus, their lives were completely transformed, and they never participated in that wickedness ever again. And then you think, of course, it makes sense, they weren't walking with God. But that made me think one day, what does it mean for people like, I don't know, maybe you, and I know for me, people who have grew up in church, we had a relationship with God, but we still made a choice that was so devastating, that was so hurtful and betrayal to the heart of God, when we should have known better. Well, I was reflecting on a situation that I have experienced in my life. So I'm not gonna say when, just walking in wisdom. I haven't really felt, you know, God say, okay, Shatila, go on and talk about it, and so I haven't. And so anyway, I'll talk about it to the extent that I feel like I can. So at some point in my adult life, I was pregnant and I made it a choice to have an abortion. This is something, if you would have asked me even a week, 3 days before it happened, I was adamantly against it. I didn't think that there was ever a good reason. And I know, you know, people bring up, well, what if someone was raped, or what if it was incest, or, you know, all these things. And yes, understandable, totally disgusting. But what I also understood is when it comes to spiritual principles and spiritual laws, you having a good reason really doesn't matter. So if by you partaking in something, you open yourself up to being attacked by the enemy. Generally, that's where I stood, and I still do today, right? Even on the other side of having done this. There was no condemnation for anyone who had experienced it, but just personally, I didn't even think that I could live with myself if I ever made a decision like that. However, I did. What I can say is that that decision was 1000% driven by fear. Like, everything happened really fast. I mean, in a matter of days. I wasn't really myself at that time. I wasn't really thinking, I think, all the way clearly. I was so distraught, you know, and I'm pregnant, and like just this anxiety, it was like enveloping me. I was not in a good place. And I really did not seek God at all. I terminated the pregnancy. It was like that next day, I came back home and I just fell in, and I just cried, and I just cried and cried and cried and cried. And for the first time in my entire life, I felt the weight of sin. I felt my need for Jesus. Like, I felt that gap between like God's holiness and our sinful nature. I felt it for the first time in my entire life, and I was so heartbroken, and I was so remorseful, and I was so sorry, and I just begged God. I'm just like, God, forgive me. Please forgive me. And it really took really clinging to God during that time for me to not completely snap and lose my mind, because I kept having all of these thoughts infiltrate from the enemy. How could you? What kind of mother would do that? It was not God's voice condemning me at all. It was the voice of the enemy. However, in that state where I already felt those things about myself, it was really serving to like tear me down. And you know, periodically I'll think back on it and I'll still just be like, I am so sorry. You know, like I know I'm forgiven. I forgive myself, but God, I am so sorry. So in one of those moments of me kind of just reflecting back over that situation, I thought, and I'm like, how could you? Like, you knew better. Like, you knew better. There's no excuse for you to have done what you did. There's no excuse for you to, in that moment, not to have fallen on your knees and prayed and fasted and sought the face of God for what you should do in this situation. And then it's like I immediately thought about Peter. And what I would really like to do is kind of walk through a biblical example of this, just for those of you who are in my shoes, who can resonate. Again, you've walked with God. It wasn't like you were far from God, you were far from his kingdom, you were doing all these things, you met him, and then all that stuff was behind you. No, you did something really catastrophic in the midst of your relationship with him. So you can find this account of Peter in all of the Gospels. There's slight variations in each of them, so I really encourage you to read all of them in totality. I'll kind of list it out below this video so that you can kind of easily go back and reference them. But I want to read the recounting from Luke because it has some interesting details in there, and I think it paints the fullest picture. And so where I want to start is in Luke 22, where we are. This is the final week of Jesus's life, and here you see that the disciples are at the Last Supper. They're talking, of course, they're breaking bread. What I have come to learn from my time in studying the Bible is that the level of detail and intentionality and the threads that you see throughout that connect the entire Bible is fascinating. Many people, especially today in the church, will say, oh, just read the New Testament, just read about Jesus. Great, do that. Also read the Old Testament. Somebody starts reading a 300-page book at page 200. So when you do that, you're able to see why and how Jesus was the fulfillment of a lot of things that were in the Old Testament. With that being said, what they were actually celebrating was the Passover. So in Luke 22:7 it says, then came the day of the unleavened bread on which the Passover lamb had to be sacrificed. Now this points us back to Exodus, where if you remember, God had told Moses, hey Moses, I need you to go back to Egypt, because he wasn't in Egypt at the time because he had killed a man and he fled. So he was like, he came to him, the burning bush, you know. So he came to him and he said, hey look Moses, I need you to go back to Egypt and I want you to tell Pharaoh, let my people go. Now mind you, the Hebrews, the Israelites at this time, they were the working class of Egypt. So in there is a massive number, it's millions of people. So one, Moses is like, well, first of all, God, I can't go back there. I killed a guy. If I go back there, they're probably gonna kill me, you know. But also two, who am I to just go tell Pharaoh, like, let these people go? He goes back, he keeps telling him, hey, let my people go. He says no, a plague comes. You say, hey, all right, let the people go. He says no, another plague will come. So at the tail end of this, there was that directive for God's people to kill a lamb, put the blood of that lamb over their doorpost, and that because an angel of death was going to pass over Egypt, and anyone, Egyptian or Hebrew, who did not have that blood on their doorpost, their firstborn would die. They slaughtered the lambs, they put the blood over the doorpost, the angel of death passes over, all of these firstborn, I mean even the firstborn of the animals, all this death just passes through Egypt. Finally Pharaoh is like, please go, yes, get out of here. Matter of fact, we're gonna give you gold, and people were giving them jewelry and all this stuff. They got blessed like on the way out. And then when they left so quickly that they didn't have time to put leaven in their bread. So they had unleavened bread along that journey. So once they got out of there, they started celebrating this feast of the Passover in remembrance of God bringing them out of Egypt. But then also part of that, they would eat unleavened bread. Okay. But that is what they are now celebrating with Jesus, who is going to be the sacrificial lamb, who is going to shed his blood so that the spirit of death, not the physical death, but the eternal death, will pass over anyone who puts their faith and trust in him. I just really wanted to make that connection, but because it's so beautiful. They're celebrating this. He institutes the Last Supper, and then they go into this discussion because Jesus starts to tell them, hey, y'all are gonna betray me. The Son of Man is gonna be betrayed. Y'all are gonna betray me. And then everyone is like, no, not me, Lord. Not me, I love you. And then it turns into like a discussion of, not only am I not gonna betray you, but I'm kind of like the one who loves you the most. And then there's this conversation about who is the greatest, which you see pick up in Luke 22-24. All right, so in the midst of this, I'm getting to it. In Luke 22:31, Jesus, he turns to Peter and says, Simon, Simon. Now, Simon was his original name, but Jesus had given him the name Peter. All right, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan demanded to have you that he may sift you like wheat, but I have prayed for you that your faith may not fail, and when you have turned again, strengthen your brothers. Peter said to him, Lord, I am ready to go with you both to prison and to death. Jesus said, I tell you, Peter, the rooster will not crow this day until you deny 3 times that you know me. Jesus tells him what's gonna happen. Hey, Peter, you're gonna deny me. Peter's like, no, not me. I'll go to prison, I'll go to death. Not me, Lord. I wanna go back to Luke 22:31. Simon, Simon, behold, Satan demanded to have you that he may sift you like wheat. This is pointing back to a parable that Jesus had given his disciples in his Sermon on the Mount. So in that Matthew 13:24, it says, he put another parable before them, saying, the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while his men were sleeping, his enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and went away. So when the plants came up and bore grain, then the weeds also appeared. And the servants of the master of the house came and said to him, Master, did you not sow good seeds in your field? How then does it have weeds? He says to them, an enemy has done this. So the servant said to him, then do you want us to go and gather them? But he said, no, lest in gathering the weeds, you root up the wheat along with them. Let both grow together into the harvest, and at the harvest time, I will tell the reapers, gather the weeds first, bind them in bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat into my barn. Now skip down to 36. This is this parable explained. Then he left the crowds and went into the house, and his disciples came to him saying, explain to us the parable of the weeds of the field. He answered, the one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, and the good seed is the sons of the kingdom. The weeds are the sons of the evil one, and the enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is at the end of age, and the reapers are the angels. Just as the weeds are gathered and burned with fire, so it will be at the end of age. The Son of Man will send his angels, and they will gather out of his kingdom all causes of sin and all lawbreakers, and throw them into the fiery furnace. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Who has ears, let him hear. So in Luke 22, when he says, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan demanded to have you that he may sift you like wheat. He knew who Peter was. He knew how God was going to use him. And just like it says in Luke 22:3 about Judas, it said, then Satan entered into Judas, called Iscariot, who was of the number of the 12. Right? So that was, he was literally at the table at the Last Supper. Satan entered him. Jesus turns to him and is like, go do what you gotta do it quickly. You'll see that in one of the other accounts. He leaves to go and sell out Jesus. Satan in the same way wanted to infiltrate Peter. He wanted to come in and he wanted to try to stop that plan and stop that will and that purpose of his life. Now I'm gonna skip forward to Luke 22:54. This is after Jesus has been betrayed. He was in the Garden of Gethsemane. They came to get him because Judas led him there. The temple elders and the guards or whatever came and they took him away. Now he's kind of in the back. He's being beaten. He's being whipped. He's being flesh torn from his body. That crown of thorns kind of pierced into his head. I've heard Someone said that it was pierced so deep it went into his brain. All of these things are happening. So all of the disciples, they scatter. They're scared. They know that everything, all this tension that has been building from this man who's calling himself God in the flesh, right? Which was high blasphemy to these, you know, Pharisees and Sadducees and the Jews of that day. It was punishable by death. It said they seized him and led him away, bringing him into the high priest's house. And Peter followed at a distance. And when they had kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and sat down together, Peter sat down among them. Then a servant girl, seeing him as he sat in the light and looking closely, said to him, "This man also was with him." But he denied it, saying, "Woman, I do not know him." And a little later, someone else saw him and said, "You also are one of them." But Peter said, "Man, I am not." After an interval of about an hour, another insisted, saying, "Certainly, this man also was with him, for he too is Galilean." But Peter said, "Man, I do not know what you are talking about." And immediately while he was speaking, and I'm going to pause because, like I said, in other accounts, you'll see that Peter, he actually, he says he curses. He denied with an oath. He didn't, and if you know anything about oaths in the Bible, like, your word is bond. You don't just lightly take an oath. Well, today we'd be like, well, if Lord God, I promise you, if you get me out of this situation, I'll never see this man again. Get out of the situation and you back at his house next weekend. Oaths in the Bible were serious. If you have something in writing and you take it to a court of law where somebody said, "Hey, I agreed to give you $3,000 every month for the rest of your life," and they signed and put their name on it, you can take that to a court of law and that it stands, right? Because it's their word, their bond, with their signature on it. That's how strong an oath was in biblical days. So then it goes on and it says, but Peter said, "Man, I do not know what you are talking about." And immediately while he was still speaking, the rooster crowed. And the Lord turned and looked at Peter. Do you know how devastating that moment had to have been? Let me keep going. And Peter remembered the saying of the Lord, how he had said to him, "Before the rooster crows today, you will deny me 3 times." And he went out and wept bitterly. In this moment, this is obviously I'm not looking at Jesus in his face, right? But when I kind of had this realization about Peter, about what does it mean for people who know God? This man literally walked with God in the flesh. He knew Jesus. He loved him. He could touch him, hug him, have audible, real life conversation with. He knew him in person. And yet he could still deny him. I want to give a little background on Peter, just to really round this out, to really give context to, okay, yeah, it sucked. He had these disciples, they were his best friends. When the rubber hit the road, this one who was super close to him actually denied him. But just to give further context and clarity to who Peter was and how hurtful this moment not only had to be for Jesus, but also to Peter. Now, this is when God came to him and he was saying, he met him on a boat. He was like, "I'm gonna make you fishers of men." First of all, he met him with a miracle. So he's out, he's on this boat, he's trying to make a living for his family, you know, all these things. He's not catching any fish. Nothing is coming in. It's terrible. Morning comes, finally like, y'all, let's wrap it up. Let's bring it in. There's this man named Jesus on the shore teaching. What ends up happening is he tells him, "Hey, go ahead, cast that net into the sea again." And he's like, you know, first like, "I don't know who you are, but like, I've been out here all night. We ain't caught nothing. Plus we're at the shore now. Like, it's, you know, it's kind of highly unlikely." And again, this is my kind of recounting of it. But it's like, it's highly unlikely we're gonna catch anything right here by the shore. He's like, "Yo, trust me, throw your net out." He throws the net out and a massive amount of fish swarm into the nets, so much so that they start breaking, the boat starts tilting over, and they need help from other people to be able to get all these fish into the boat. All right, this is how he meets him. And then he tells them, "Hey, come follow me, I will make you fishers of men." So then at that moment, Peter, he left his profession, he left his family, he had a whole life. He left to be able to follow Jesus. Right? He walked with him the bulk of about 3 years of ministry that Jesus had before he was crucified. And he saw all the signs and wonders and miracles. Like I said, he met him with a miracle. He was so close to him that Jesus would come to his house. He came to his house once and he healed his mother-in-law. She was super sick, on the verge, 1 foot in the grave, like maybe 1.5 foot, and like she was on the verge of death. He heals her. She hops up. She starts making them some food, you know, whatever. So before the disciples were officially commissioned, after Jesus rose from the dead, and he tells them, Matthew 28:19, go out, make disciples, you know, of the nations and whatnot. He kind of does like a mini commissioning where he sends out the disciples kind of 2 by 2 to go and start teaching, and he tells them, you're going to do signs and wonders, you're going to do all these things. So he had that experience even while Jesus was still here, to go out, to be commissioned, to start teaching, to start doing miracles himself. Just a regular man. This is the same Peter who was out on a boat, and he's with these other men. They see this figure walking to them. They're in the middle of an ocean, and they see a figure walking towards them, and they're like, at first they thought it was like a ghost or something like that, but then it's like, no, it's the Lord. And Peter's like, okay, Lord, if it's really you, like, have me come out there on the water with you. Jesus his boat and walks clear across the water. And this one is really important. I'm actually going to go and I'm going to read this one in its full context. Matthew 16:13. Now when Jesus came to the district of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, who do the people say that the Son of Man is? And they said, some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. He said to them, but who do you say that I am? Simon Peter replied, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus answered him, blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom, and whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Then he strictly charged the disciples to tell no one that he was the Christ. This is the same Peter who was able to recognize by revelation of God that he was walking next to the Messiah. He was walking next to the Christ. He was walking next to the fulfillment of this promise that these people have been waiting on for centuries. Even some of them didn't even believe when it was right in front of their face. But by the revelation of God, he knew this. Peter was the one that spoke up and said, you are the Christ. And then in return, Jesus said, blessed are you. You will be the rock of my church, Simon Peter. Okay. This is the same Peter who, when Christ was basically saying that he would suffer, that he would die, all these things, Peter was like, it'll never happen to you, Lord. No, it won't. Not while I'm around. Right? And Jesus had to rebuke him. He said, get behind me, Satan, because you don't understand things of the spirit. You're thinking about things in a worldly sense. Okay, so he was in his inner circle. So within Jesus's inner circle was Peter, James, and John. He went up on a mountain and he saw Jesus transfigured. He saw him talking to Elijah and Moses, and then heard from heaven audibly God speak. And not only did they hear God speak from heaven, but they heard him affirm that yes, this is the Christ, this is my son. So not only had this been revealed to Peter, you know, by the Spirit of God, he heard it audibly. So he knew who Jesus was, right? This is the same Peter. So he was promised, he was one of the 12 disciples, because they were asking Jesus one day, they were like, Jesus, we've left our family, we've left all our stuff, like we've done all these things for you, like we've given up a lot for you, Jesus. And Jesus told them, all 12 of you will reign with me on a throne in the kingdom of heaven for eternity. So Peter, he was one of the ones that was promised to rule with Christ in eternity forever, and to judge the tribes of Israel. He's also the one, obviously we kind of read a little bit, that said he would never deny Christ, he would die with him. He was one of 3, one of the inner circle that Jesus personally details the signs of the times, the end times too, in Mark. Again, one of the inner circle, he was able to see the little girl raised from the dead. Nobody else would. He told, hey, don't talk about this, because this was before Lazarus was raised from the dead. This is before Jesus himself was raised from the dead. So Peter, he was one of those who was able to see resurrection in real time by the power of the Holy Spirit working through Jesus Christ. Okay, he saw it with his own eyes. So in John 6, when the disciples, it said that people started falling away, responding, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. He knew, where am I falling away from? You are eternal life. You are the Christ. You are the Messiah. I've seen you do signs, miracles, wonders. I've seen you raise people from the dead. I've heard God audibly call from heaven and affirm you as his son. Where else am I going to go? And finally, this is the Peter who was so about Jesus that when they did come, when Judas led the temple priests and guards or whatever to the Garden of Gethsemane to betray him and to take him away, Peter was the one that whipped out his sword and cut off the ear of the priest's servant. And, you know, Jesus was like, no, we're not going to do that, and, you know, kind of healed him. All right, so all of that to give context to just a glimpse of who Peter was, his relationship with Christ. He knew. It wasn't like, oh yeah, I saw that man. Like, not only did you walk with him, you were in his inner circle, you knew him intimately, you were one of his top 3. He specifically told you he was going to build his church on you. You saw him transfigured. You audibly heard God call from heaven and affirm him as his son. You identified him even before then as being the Christ, as being the long-awaited Messiah. All of these things. He knew that. And yet and still, when the rubber hit the road, when it really mattered, he denies him. I don't know that man. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have nothing to do with him. I swear by an oath, I don't know who that is. While at the same time, Jesus is having his flesh ripped from his body. He is being beaten and bruised, not even just for Peter, for all of us. And in that moment, in that pivotal moment where knowing Jesus should kind of dictate how you navigate forward in that situation, he turns his back. He acts like he ain't even never had a conversation with the man. And then in Luke's recounting, he says that Jesus looked at him. I can only imagine what was in that look. I can only imagine the crushing feeling that Peter felt. When it says that he went out and he wept bitterly, I understand that. Like I said, the day that I got back home from having that abortion, I wept bitterly. And the next day, and the next day, and the next day. I can't say that I felt exactly what Peter felt in that moment. I can say that it was similar. I don't have the experience that Peter had of actually walking and talking with Jesus and hearing from heaven and all of these things, and actually doing signs and wonders and miracles and seeing these things happen right in front of him, seeing people raised from the dead in front of him. I don't have that like he did. But yet I've always been I've always had a relationship with God. I pray, I read my Bible, I go to church, and it's more the same thing for me in my life. When the rubber hit the road, when I should have, like I said, fell on my knees, prayed, fasted, sought the face of God, leaned more into faith over fear, all of these things, I did not. I chose to lean into my flesh. I chose to let fear and anxiety and all of these things override and overwhelm me to the point of making a decision that I could never take back. So then what? Now what? Well, if you skip over to John 21 and 15. Now, this is after Jesus has died. You know, he's been crucified. His stone was rolled away. He raised from the dead. He has appeared a few times to, like, the disciples. Let's just go to the top of 21. So it says, after this, Jesus revealed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias. And he revealed himself in this way. Simon Peter, Thomas, called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, two other of his disciples were together. Simon Peter said to them, I am going fishing, which I think is so interesting when it's like you don't know what else to do, so you just kind of go back to what you know, what's familiar. So this is after the crucifixion, after the resurrection. I'm sure his mind is spinning, right? He's like, I have betrayed this man so hard. What am I supposed to do? Just go be like, hey, Lord, What's up, Lord? Like, it's almost like in the garden when Adam and Eve had ate of the fruit, they hid from God. And that's our human tendency. We do something, we mess up, and we try to just like shrink back away from God. This is how I almost envision Peter in this moment. It's like, I can't really be all up under him like that. Like, our betrayal is like almost not even the word. Let me just go back over here and just do it, because he probably don't even want nothing to do with me. Let me just go back to fishing. So they said to him, we will go with you. They went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Again, going back to that first night he met Jesus. Just as the day was breaking, Jesus stood on the shore. Yet the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to them, children, do you have any fish? They answered him, no. He said to them, cast out the net on the right side of the boat and you will find some. So they cast it. This is very similar picture to how he met Peter the first time. And notice that Peter, while he was shrinking away from God, Jesus came to where he was. He met him where he was. He did not allow him to just hide away. He loved him so much. He came to him, and he does the same with us. Cast the net on the right side of the boat and you will find some. So they cast it, and now they were not able to haul it in because of the quantity of fish. That disciple whom Jesus loved therefore said to Peter, it is the Lord. When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his outer garment, for he was stripped for work, and threw himself into the sea. The other disciples came in the boat, dragging the net full of fish, for they were not far off from the land, but about 100 yards off. When they got out on the land, they saw a charcoal fire in place, with fish laid out on it and bread. Then Jesus said to them, bring some of the fish. So Simon Peter went aboard and hauled the net ashore, full of large fish, 153 of them. The significance of that number, I have no idea. And although there were so many, the net was not torn. Jesus said to them, come and have breakfast. Now, none of the disciples dared to ask, who are you? They knew it was the Lord. Jesus came and took the bread and gave it to them, so with the fish. This was now the third time Jesus was revealed to the disciples after he was raised from the dead. So Jesus comes to meet Peter, and he comes serving them. Like, he made a breakfast. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me more than these? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. He said to him, feed my lambs. He said to him a second time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. He said to him, tend to my sheep. He said to him a third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was grieved because he had said to him a third time, do you love me? And he said to the Lord, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Jesus said to him, feed my sheep. Truly, truly, I say to you, when you were young, you used to dress yourself and walk wherever you wanted, but when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and another will dress and carry you where you do not want to go. This he said to show by what kind of death he was to glorify God. After saying this, he said to him, follow me. So I don't know if you noticed that Jesus asked him 3 times, did he love him? Peter denied him 3 times. So it was almost like he was giving him this equivalent amount of times to repent for it. But in this moment, you see that Jesus is affirming him. He is allowing Peter. When you see God asking questions in scripture, know that the question is not for him. The question is for us. He doesn't need to ask questions. He's God. So he was giving Peter the opportunity to search his own heart and to be like, yeah, like, yes, I did what I did, but God, yeah, I love you. Yes, I love you. Yeah, I did that, but it wasn't because I didn't love him. Like, I did it out of fear. I did it out of anxiety. I did it, you know, out of self-preservation or whatever. And to almost reaffirm that and recommit that. And in turn, Jesus, he starts with how he started with him in the beginning. He says, follow me, then follow me. Forget about all of that. Forget about what happened. Don't worry about anything else. Follow me and everything will be okay. If you go back to Luke 22, where we were reading, when he told him that this was going to happen. Again, this is not a shock to Jesus. Even when he looked at him in that moment, he's being beaten, he's bleeding, and all these things are happening, and he looks at Peter when the rooster's crowing, and Peter has this realization. Jesus knew this. He told him at the table, Luke 22:31, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan demanded to have you, that he may sift you like wheat. But I have prayed for you, that your faith may not fail. And when you have turned again, strengthen your brothers. And I think that this is so beautiful, because even before it happened, Jesus was so kind. He knew that it was going to happen, and he tells them, hey, Satan wants you, but I personally have prayed for you that he may not have you. And I have prayed that your faith may not fail. So even when you do what you're about to do, even knowing our relationship, even knowing what you know about me, and I know how you're gonna feel after you do it, I pray for you even now that your faith will not fail, that you will not feel so defeated, Shatila, you, after doing something that was a betrayal to me. I pray that even after that, that the enemy does not enter your mind and try to have you, that he does not have his way with you. I pray that that does not cause you to turn from me or to feel like you cannot be near me anymore. I pray that your faith will not leave after you have made such a choice. And then he tells him, and when you turn back, because he knew you're gonna turn back, because I know your heart, strengthen your brothers. So Jesus is telling someone who is essentially messed up so bad, hey, I pray for you. I pray that Satan will not have you. I pray that your faith will not fail on the other side of this. And when you come back, after you've gone through it and you come back, I pray that you use that testimony and that you strengthen your brothers. And then going back to what he told them in John, follow me. Keep your eyes on me, Peter, just like you did when you were walking on that water and you didn't start sinking until you took your eyes off me. And I told you that. That's the only reason why you started to sink. Follow me. Don't let your faith fail. And then go back and strengthen your brothers. Yes, you who messed up. Yes, you who should have known better. Yes, you who have walked with me and still made that choice. Yes, you, Peter, who knew me intimately, who heard God say who I am and you still denied me. Yes, you, Shatila, who has walked with me and I've been with and you've seen me show up in your life. Yes, you who still chose to go and abort that baby. Yes, you, I want you to still open your mouth when the enemy tries to come in and tries to whisper, who do you think that you are? You had an abortion. You think that you're gonna go back and now speak about how good God is and how you should go and fall at his feet and pray to him? Yes, you. Yes, you. Yes, you didn't do it in that moment, but yes, you. Yes, you, I still want you to do that. No, I don't want your faith to fail, Shatila. No, I don't want the enemy to come in and try to shut your mouth, because that is the purpose that I have for you. I want you to keep speaking and I want you to keep being bold for me, even in spite of that decision that you made. And the same for you. Whatever your name is, whatever your circumstance was, whatever your bad choice was in the midst of your walk for God, that is the same message that he has for you. So I hope that this has come together in a way that was edifying for you just as much as it was edifying for me. If you have any thoughts, feedback, please leave them in the comments below. I see everyone, I respond to everyone. Partner with me in getting this message out to other people who might need to see it just by liking this video. I would really greatly appreciate it. I really appreciate you for taking this time to just sit with me and hearing the revelation that was given to me. And I hope, like I said, that it is edifying to you. And until the next video, bye.